I started writing when I was in high school. It's just always something I've done, but I never thought it was anything worth sharing with anybody. And then in college, I had a friend who put out a literary magazine, just a small one with a couple of local people, and I was like, that would be a cool opportunity, maybe I can submit to that. And I sent him 2 pieces, and those got published. I was like, able to share that with my family and my friends, and they were super supportive, and I was like, that felt really cool. Maybe I should do that again. So I did that again. And I sent him 2 more pieces for like a fall issue, and those 2 were accepted as well. And I was like, that felt really good. I should do that again. And I was wondering how I can get this to people. It's not like music where you can necessarily just get it to people immediately. So I was like, I'll make a blog. And so for the last 2 years, I've steadily been just posting things as I've written them. One piece would take me, some would be written in 15 minutes on a lunch break, and some would take months. And all the ones on the blog total up to 21 pieces. I think there's one more that didn't actually make the book, but everything that is in the book that came out was posted on that site throughout 2.5 to 3 years. And that starts from me being in college in Georgia, writing the first one, to me moving to Virginia and having absolutely 0 friends for 2 years, and writing some of those poems in a Burger King because we didn't have TV, we didn't have Wi-Fi, we had 0 friends, we had minimum wage paying part-time jobs at an archery factory. So we didn't really have a lot going on. I would just sit on my floor. We didn't have furniture. And I would read, I read like Crime and Punishment during that time, and a whole host of other books. That's the big one I remember. And I would just write. And I'd write on my floor, and it's like my bed was a sleeping bag. I'd write in the Burger King, I'd write in my car on my little lunch break that I got. And then eventually my job got better, and I did make friends, and I moved in with them, and all this time I'm writing, just saying what I see pretty much. So from really, really, really lonely times to times where there's all these awesome people around me, up till now, and all the different variables that can change in a life in about 3 years, they're all in the writing. And yeah, it's always been what I've done in my way of, it made the most sense to me in terms of processing the world through writing. And there's one writer who I usually think about. Something he said was, he doesn't understand his own thoughts until they're written. And that's kind of my way of processing what feels like too many thoughts at once for me. I'm able to pick a topic or isolate on a story or something that happened to me and really explore that and wonder how I could be a better person because of it, or what it might be trying to teach me. And I process all of that in the writing. So my family's kind of all over the place. Some of them are artistic, not necessarily in their vocation or anything like that, just they are artistic people, but they're creative people. But none of them have jobs like that, so there was no kind of template for me doing this. I'm kind of the artsier or creative person in my family. Some people in the military in my family, some people in the church. And so I don't know, when I was a kid I was either cooking or drawing, like doodling. I was always kind of scratching at something, trying to find some form of expression, because that's just how the world, it was kind of too loud for me. I couldn't really process a lot, it feels like, and I was just really, really nervous all the time, and still am. So I needed to like zero in on certain things and freeze moments or freeze conversations or freeze friendships and really go into detail about those things in order for me to actually understand the implications of them, good or bad. Because otherwise it just feels like life is kind of going by too fast and it's too much to process at once. So that's inspiration-wise, like I don't know, it's kept on fire from all different kinds of other means of expression, from movies and music and conversations with my friends and awesome books and poetry. And I don't know, I honestly just find inspiration in a lot of different places, and you can never really kind of tell where it's going to come from. I work at a machine shop, which is mentioned in the book. I work in the office portion of that, literally working the stereotypical Fight Club office job where the person is just kind of, most days, like, disenfranchised and jaded with thinking about how little I contribute to the world through that job. But then I'll work, and while I'm at work, I do have a fair amount of free time between tasks that I'm given, and I usually read 90% of the books that I read at work. But I read a lot of philosophy and literature and poetry. I have a running list of all the different books I've read while I'm at work, because I would just rather try to make it worth something instead of just reading article after article after article, which I also do. And I also write at work a little bit when I get minutes in between the jangling of my boss's keys coming by and me having to go back to pretending to work. And then I'll go on my lunch break, which consists of me going into my car and driving out to the Food Line parking lot and parking it under a tree and cracking the windows and maybe smoking a cigarette or having a cup of coffee. And I just write for, there isn't a lot of lunch break of an hour, so I go in from 8 to 5 with an hour built-in lunch break that I can take more or less time with that. But that's where the majority of my writing comes, because when I get off work, as of lately, I live at a house with 4 other people, and it's very noisy, and I don't know, it's hard to find solitude there. I can carve it out for myself and go up on the roof or go to a coffee shop or go into my room sometimes, or go to the park, which I like to go to get away from noise. But for the most part, the hour of my lunch break is kind of the heart of where most of the writing comes from, or at least the ideas or something like that. And then the nights are really up in the air. You know, hang out with different people, try to write a little more, maybe go to the gym or go for a run or something. This one it's called Sometimes Sunflowers, and it uses some fairly standard poetic imagery of flowers and things like that. But I wrote it at a time when it was about 2 summers ago, and I was in one of the darker places I've ever been, and I was drinking most nights right until I fell asleep. Then I would just wake up hungover, as the book suggests, and go to work and do the same thing again. And this was around the time where I had 0 friends also, and I lived in an apartment. And it was just a bad summer, and one day in the summer, inexplicably, I felt a little bit less terrible. And then the next day I felt a little bit less terrible. And maybe one of those days I still definitely didn't take care of myself, but maybe didn't drink as much or went to the gym a few times. And it just felt things turning. I guess my perception of myself turning. Thinking that I'm worth the effort, and slowly but surely, like, clawing my way out of a dark place through no thought that this is a great idea, I should start taking care of myself, I'm worth this, or any kind of huge revelation like that. It's just that feeling of waking up and inexplicably things feel at least manageable. And I started writing this poem around that time, and how you can kind of be surprised by joy in that way, or surprised by purpose, or surprised by a reason to not just be my absolute worst all the time, and to take care of myself. So this is that poem, Sometimes Sunflowers. Sometimes sunflowers surprise and posture up through concrete cracks. Big, dumb yellowheads, struggle drunk but thick with courage, asserting themselves in orphan schoolyards and abandoned parking lots, where the poets of practicality shore up and, in these same forgotten spaces, watch the sunflower show. Scribbling, pious, frenetic in the heat, like gospel authors detailing a miracle, they bleed a language dry, searching for words and calculated combinations that would, in some way, accurately convey the beautiful determination they happened upon today. Disappointment strikes when the moon clocks in for her night shift, and poets return home to comb over their accounts of a bravery that calls no attention to itself. Devastating, inimitable, yellow. Amateurish adjectives and vacant prose. Shapes and squiggles on a page, unpersuasive in their attempt to bottle a beauty too heavy true for words. Back in their apartment that night, the poets take it out on their wives. Collateral damage of a beauty wrongly defined. Life seen only as good as its eventual use, a pleasure proved only by what it eventually produced. When good news takes a backseat to a realistic take on truth, the newspaper headlines of life read only, ever, all bad news to you. Now she wears bruises on her arms, has to ice her jaw, because you only read the first half of the story, and you missed what you should have paid attention to. A ways away, whisper soft and humble-hearted in big cities of men desperate to prove a point. Sunflowers, contented in the clumsy, say while waking, don't think about it too much. Some things are just beautiful because. Exacerbated poets won't hear it, refuse to listen, frustrated, saying, however beautiful it is, it's unprofitable if it doesn't end in something profound being written. There's something that you're missing. If something is only as beautiful as what it eventually leads to, you'll always be disappointed. This one, devastating, inimitable, yellow, wonderful now that we have is beautiful because it is, and who we get to share it with. And no, it isn't perfect, but how or who or what the hell ever is. Life is not a means to an end, and love is not a function. And we can piss and moan and circle the cheap beer section 3 times like the walls of Jericho and wish it was different. But until we really know and believe it in our bones that the lovely life is the life we have, walls will continue to stand. And we will no longer be able to discern the difference between what is most important and what is most urgent, and that gratitude is a discipline. And believe me when I say, I am so often the same way. Still moonlight as a poet of practicality from time to time, have life so pragmatically defined that the people I love are the people that pay most for it. But I am working on it. I am working on not becoming another in a world too full of men who turn 100 in their 20s, and base life around the lie that happiness won't buy you money. I am working on it, because I've already seen me and too many of my friends trade our wants for oughts, and think too much about what other people who worry about what other people think of them think of us. I am trying to conscientiously object to the heart's not-so-civil war between the haves and the have-nots. Grow a garden of gratitude in the space between the way things are and the way I wish they'd be. Not let myself become another caloric casualty, another slow death by small talk. I am trying to remember to forget what I've been led to believe about beauty and its eventual use, because truthfully, sunflowers can be seen as either lovely or in your way. It's all a matter of what you choose to pay attention to. So find me back in the abandoned parking lots, the orphan schoolyards, working hard to quiet my heart. Because if you do it enough, if you listen to what the sunflowers say, that some things are just beautiful because, you will find real miracles in your real life, and the whole world will feel like music. And you'll notice how the clouds hang, suspended, like jagged little F-sharp sevenths in the otherwise blank page of sky, and you'll start to sing along with it. Because you didn't know what you thought you did. Because you understand that love is not a function. Because you are grateful for life. And because sometimes sunflowers surprise.